I'll show you what we are working on today. It's a simple debounce function, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a custom debounce hook. And if you are unfamiliar with what debouncing is, it allows us to send a request to an API after the user stops typing. So if you've ever created a profile on or an account somewhere and you need to pick a username and you were to go, well, say your name is Arthur and you type in Arthur and that username already exists in the database, it will come up. You don't need to do anything. It is really good for user experience because, you know, I'm sure we've all had those experiences where we are, signing up for something, and then it's not until we click the next button that it tells us that the username is taken or that something isn't right. So it's much better user experience to have this kind of feedback displayed, as the user is going through it. You like zebras and your username is zebras, that username is available, right? So, and it's not only used for things like this. You could do this for if you have like a search and the user doesn't have to click search and nothing. It just kind of all happens automatically. And one of the reasons why you'd want to use a debounce function when you're working with another API is because you don't want to spam API endpoints. If you're working with an API, you don't want to send a request every single time the user makes a key down, because otherwise you're going to be sending so many requests that are just, pointless. So yeah, that's what we are going to be building in this tutorial. I did provide the starter code this time, and I will probably actually also upload the finished code so you can kind of compare it. And I hope all this helps everybody. Please do continue to give me feedback. I really do appreciate it. I think this is going to be a nice, fun project to get back into the swing of everything. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm here in the project starter GitHub repo, and we're just going to begin by cloning the repo. Come up here. And let it do its thing. Then we will cd into the debounce starter project and open up in VS Code, and I will see you there. Okay, so here we are in VS Code. The first thing that we are going to do is we need to run npm install. Now let's go ahead and just run npm run dev, and I will show you what the starter template looks like. Okay, so this is the starter project. As you can see, it's very simple. We just have a input, and basically what this is meant to kind of replicate is the pick username section in a create profile flow. So prior to this, you might have had a where you grab the user's name, their date of birth, their city, bio, whatever. It's just meant to kind of mimic that, so it feels like we are, using this in a realistic and practical scenario. So I'll show you. Oops, not in here. In source, and app, and page. So we're just using the default page component that we get out. I cleared out everything in that, and I just rebuilt it in here. If you don't want to follow along with the starter template, you can pause right now and kind of just copy what I have. It's pretty straightforward stuff, and we will build the rest of it out. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to integrate Supabase into our project, because Supabase is what we are going to be using to store our dummy data that we are eventually going to search. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll actually start by creating a new file called .env. And if you notice here inside of the starter template, I gave you a .env.example. Just copy the variables from in there and paste them into here. And we are going to populate these with the credentials that we get from our Supabase project, which we are going to create right now. So if you don't have Supabase, it's really easy to get started. Just go on, you can log right in with GitHub, create an account with email, whatever. But whenever you get in and you get signed in, you will come up to create a new project. And I'm just going to call it Debounce tutorial. And I'm going to generate a password for our database. You go ahead and generate your own password. I am going to delete all of this prior to the video being uploaded, so I'm not too concerned about leaking any of this. It's all going to be gone by the time this video comes out. So yeah, so I just copied that password up over here because we are going to need it after we create our project. And then after all that's done, we are just going to click Create New Project. This is going to take a minute to completely set up, so I will get back with you guys when that is done. Okay, so it looks like our project has been successfully created. So let's go ahead and populate our environment file with all of the credentials that we need. So first off, we're going to grab the database URL. You can get that by coming over here to project settings, go to database. We're going to come down to Node.js. I'm going to copy this to our environment variable. And up here where it says database URL, we're just going to paste that in. We're going to cut this password and paste the password here where it says your password in square brackets. We just paste that right in. Save that up. Next, we need the project URL. So grab that. We are still in the project settings, but we're going to come down to API and grab this at the top. Come into our env file, paste that right in, save it up. Come back, we need the anon key. We'll grab that, it's right down here. Grab that, paste that in, and then finally we need the secret key. We're going to reveal it and copy it. And again, I'm not keeping any of this around. It's all going to be deleted by the time you even see this video, so you do need to go through and grab your own keys and stuff. Anyway, yeah, so with that done, we should be able to come up here and I'll show you what our Prisma schema looks like. It's very simple. Just have one user model, but let's check and see if our if everything is connected properly. So we'll do that by running npx Prisma generate and let this go. That looks good. And now we will run npx Prisma db push. And everything's looking good. Okay, so that's looking good. So we'll come back up here into our Supabase project just to be sure. We'll come over to table editor. And you can see we have our user table here. If we go into that, here we have it. ID, username, and created at. The ID is text, the username is text, and the created at is a timestamp. So next, what we need to do is we need to seed the database with some dummy data. And to do that, we are just going to write a simple seed script in our project. So come over here into the Prisma folder and create a new file, and we'll just call it seed.ts. Inside here, I'm going to import Prisma client, and then instantiate it, I guess is the word. By doing const Prisma equals new Prisma client. Okay, and then here is going to be our function. So we're going to start off, this is going to be an async function called main. And inside here, first off, we are going to declare an array of our usernames. It's just going to be our dummy data. So I'm just going to call it const seed user names equals to, let's just do Arthur, do Bruce, Charlie, and Dave. You can do however many you want. You can add in numbers and special characters. Obviously, in real usernames, you're probably going to have numbers and underscores, periods, dashes. You generally probably won't have, I guess it depends on the app that you're making. You might have special characters, but for this, these are just going to be simple names. With that done, we're going to come down here and we are going to create a for loop that we are going to use to go through our array and then create a new user with that username. So we're going to do a simple for loop. So for const username of seed usernames, we're going to await Prisma.user.create, and our data is just going to be username. Okay, simple. So basically all this does is it iterates through this array and then it runs this function on each element. So it'll run it for Arthur, it'll run it for Bruce, it'll run it for Charlie, and it'll run it for Dave, and it will create those in the database. Perfect. So let's come down here outside of our main function, and we need to actually call the function. So we're just going to call it main, and then we're going to add in a catch just to catch any errors if they happen to arise. And we're just going to console.error the message, and then we are going to exit one. Okay, let's come down here, and then finally it's going to be async. We are going to disconnect. Perfect. Okay, so to run this script, we need to install a package, and that package is tsnode, so we can run the script. So we're just going to grab this, come back to our project, paste it in there, and install it. Okay, going to clear that out, and then to run it, all we do is we come down here. Let's see, where is it at? Where's it at? Okay, so it's basically just we run tsnode and then the name of our file. So we come back in here and we run npx ts-node, and the script that we want to run is inside of the Prisma directory. So we need to do Prisma/seed.ts. Let that go. And we have a syntax cannot use import statement. Okay, right. So to fix this error, we're just going to go into our package.json. Up here, it could be, beneath version, we're going to add in a new field, and it's going to be type, and we want module. Save that. Clear that out, and let's try running this again. npx npx ts-node prisma/seed.ts. Let that go. And we have unknown extension. Okay. This is gonna be a little weird, but let's just try renaming this to .js and see if that helps. I mean, because what we wrote in here anyways, we didn't use any TypeScript, so it's basically just JS anyway. I'm just so used to creating things with the the TS. I'm just so used to creating things with the TS extension that sometimes it doesn't really matter. So for this, let's try this again. Let's try npx ts -node Prisma /seed.js this time. Okay, and that one seems to work. So if you run into that problem where it said like unrecognized extension or something like that, whatever it was, I can't remember, just change your extension from TS to JS and that should fix it. We didn't even use any TypeScript in this file anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But to make sure that worked, let's go on up here to, I can close out of that, our Supabase project, and here we go. We can see now we have it seeded with our demi data. So yeah, looks pretty good. The next thing that we want to do is let's start implementing our functionality. So first things first, let's clean this up a bit, and let's go ahead and start with creating our debounce custom hook. So let's go ahead and create a new folder inside of the source, and we'll call it hooks, and then create a new file. And because we are creating a custom hook, we should use a convention where we start hooks with use, and for this one we're just going to call it useDebounce and .ts. We are going to be working with some useState and useEffect and useRef in this file, so we are going to need to declare it as a client component. Okay, and let's just go ahead and create our function. So we're going to call it const useDebounce, add in our arrow to make it an arrow function. Perfect. And then let's just go ahead and export default. useDebounce. Perfect. Okay, so essentially what our debounce function does is it is going to take in two arguments. It is going to take in a value, which is going to be the username that we are going to search, and it is going to take in a delay. And the delay is just going to be a number in milliseconds. And what's going to happen is that using this function, we are going to create a timer with the delay, specified delay, and then after that specified delay, we are going to set the state value that we are going to create and return that. That way, so basically all we're doing is just creating a timer and setting a piece of state to a specified value and then returning that after the timer is up. So to do that, we're going to first need to grab some state. So import useState from React, and we are going to need our props, which is just going to be of type props. And let's go ahead and grab that up here. So type props is going to be equal to, and like I mentioned, we are going to have a value, which is going to be a string because it is our username, and we're going to have a delay, which is going to be a number. Let's go ahead and, like I mentioned, we're going to create a new piece of state, and we're going to call it const debounced value, set debounced value is equal to useState props dot value. We have that initialized, and that is going to be whatever username it is that gets passed in. Next, we are going to need to create a timeout ref, use ref. Okay, so let's create our timeout ref. We're just going to call it timeout ref. And it's going to be use ref. And we want node.js dot timeout or undefined, and we are going to start it off as undefined. Great. Okay. So now let's get into the meat of it. Now I mentioned earlier that we need to have the specified delay, and after that delay, we return the debounced value. So to do that, we're just going to use everybody's favorite use effect. We just need use effect. Great. Okay. And then in our dependency array, we do need two values. We want the props.value and props.delay. So anytime our prop values change, this use effect is going to run. So the first thing that we need to do is check if there is a current timer and clear one if it exists. Okay, so simple enough. So to do this, we're just going to do if timeout ref dot current, then we just want to clear our timeout, and we want to comment timeout ref dot current. Okay, so basically what this does is it just checks to see if we already have a timer. If we do, it's going to clear that out. Next, we want to initiate a new timer and set the debounced value after specified delay is probably a better word, delay. Okay, so to create our timer, we want timeout ref dot current, and we're going to create a new timeout. So set timeout, and you might be familiar with this. It's just a typical timeout, and for the delay, we're just going to do props dot delay, and that's the value. This is the value, so it's just a normal timeout basically, and the delay value is just going to be our props dot delay, and then inside is what we want to do. We want to set our debounced value to props dot value. Okay, perfect. Now that's that, and then the last thing that we need to do inside of our use effect is we need to clean up for when component is unmounted. Okay, so it's just a simple cleanup function. We return if we have a timeout ref dot current, then basically we do what we did above. We need to clear that. So clear timeout ref and dot current. Perfect. Okay. So now that we have that, after this use effect runs, we need to actually return our value to the component asking for it. And to do that, all we do is return debounce value, and that's it. This is pretty much our debounce function, and it is again, essentially all we are doing is just setting a timer and then letting that timer, after the timer is up, just returning the value that we were sent. Next, what we need to do is we need to go into our component. So let's come back up here into page. And the first thing that we are going to want to do, add some state in here. So let's come up here to React. We want to also import useState. And to use the state, we are going to, this is going to be state for our username. So username set username equal to useState. And we can just set it to an empty string for now. We'll come down here into our input where we use the username. This would actually be username, if it, make it a little bit more accurate to what we are doing here. We want value to equal username, and then if we have the value, we should also probably do the on change, and we're going to call it handle username change. So for this function, we are going to be using use callback. We're going to declare the function const handle username change, and that's actually going to be equal to use callback. We are going to have an event, and it's going to be of type react.change event HTML input element, and get that going. Great. Let's add in our empty array here. Okay, so inside of here is basically going to be pretty simple. We are just going to create e.target.value. e.target.value, we're going to set username to new username. And then let's just start off with this for now. Okay, that looks good. So I think now is going to be a good time to bring in our custom hook. So we are going to import useDebounce from hooks/debounce. And we're going to come down here and let's just do const debounce username is equal to use debounce. And you can see that it is upset that we haven't added in our props. So we're going to add in value and set that to username. And delay, and let's make it really obvious that something's working. So let's just do like, I don't know, 2 seconds, so 2000 milliseconds. And so that's good. Next, what we want to do is we want to add in some state to tell us whether or not the username is taken. So we'll have const username is taken, set username is taken to use state, and this can it's going to be either Boolean or it is going to be null, and we are going to actually start it off as null. Okay, and then that should do it for the state that we have to work with. Let's go ahead and create our API route that we're going to call. So let's create a new folder inside of our app and call it API. Inside of the API folder, we're going to create another folder, and we're going to call that check-username. And then inside of check username, we're going to create a file called route.ts. Inside of our route.ts, we are first off going to import our Prisma from, and it's going to be from this file here. So make sure it's lowercase p Prisma from, and this is a file that I gave you in the starter, so you should already have this. If I can get my conventions right, // lib/Prisma. There we go, that's good. And then import next response from next server, and we also want next request. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and code this out. So we want export async function post, because we are going to be sending some data here. Request is going to be of type next request. Is that out? Perfect. Okay. So we are going to create a try catch block. And so if we do catch an error, we are going to console.error, that error, and then we also are going to return new response JSON.stringify, and we're going to call it taken and set that to null. So remember when I said that username is taken could be null, and that is because if something for whatever reason goes wrong on the back end, you don't want to say that the username isn't available because it technically might be available, so it's just not good UX. It would be better to just, say that something went wrong. Also, you probably want to have a status code in here. For inside here, we want to get our username from the post request. So to do that seems a little bit verbose, but this is the way. Const body is equal to await rec.json. And then we are going to destructure the username from the body. Okay. Next, what we need to do is we need to check if this username already exists as a user in our database. So to do that, we are doing const user is equal to await prisma.user.find unique. And because the username is unique, we can search by the username. Where username. Okay, so I'll show you in here too. You want to be sure that if you are using this, whatever you are searching by is unique, because otherwise, yeah, it wouldn't make much sense to do this if the usernames weren't unique, because then it wouldn't matter if the username's already taken. Now we want to send our response based on whether or not we have a user. So if there is not a user, so if no user, then the username is available. So we will just return new response JSON.stringify, and we will set the taken to false because it is not taken. However, if there is a user, then we just want to return new response JSON.stringify, and we want to taken to be set to true because it is taken. If we found a user, then the username is taken. Great. So that is all set up. Let's go back to our page and get everything kind of hooked up. So first things first, in order to be able to make this API request, we are going to be using Axios. So just npm install Axios. Yeah, so let's go ahead. Now we have Axios. Let's import Axios. Okay, and then we are also going to need useEffect, everyone's favorite. All right, how this is going to work is we're going to have a function, and that function is going to be called check for username. And this function is, surprise, surprise, going to check for the username. So we want const response is equal to await Axios. And since this is the route that we defined as a post request, we want .post. And then we are just going to give it the route. So it's /API /check username. And then we are going to give it the username. So I'll put this on pause for a second because this is going to be called in our useEffect. So let's go ahead and get that set up. And this is going to run anytime we have debounced username, which is our hookup here. Okay. Okay. So if we have debounced username, then we are going to run check for username. And down here for username, debounced username dot, and then depending on, in a real world application, you would probably have constraints on how the username must be formatted. So lowercase, certain numbers, symbols, whatever. So in our seed, you notice that all of the things that usernames that we seeded the database with, they're all lowercase. So we want to make sure that whenever a user searching for a username, that it is like it's in lowercase, because otherwise it won't match. Yeah, so then we could have like an Alice with an uppercase and an Alice with a lowercase, and it would just get kind of confusing. So we're just going to do 2 lowercase. And then we need to do something with that response. So we need to grab the taken value that we send back. And that's coming from response.json, or sorry, response.data. What am I doing? Response.data. And then we are going to, does that again, set username is taken to whatever taken is. Okay. Okay, so now what we are probably going to want to do is give some user feedback. So it doesn't make a difference if the user can't see what's going on. So I did have a spot down here set up, an empty div that we are going to place some user feedback. And inside this div, we are going to get a little verbose here with our conditional on how we're going to render this. So to start off, if the username is, why is that just set username is taken? Did I do something wrong over here? There we go. Should be username, not. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. If username is taken is equal to true, then we are going to say this username is taken, please try another. So let's add in a P, and username is already taken, please try another. Okay, so we have username is already taken, please try another. And then else, if username is taken is equal to false, then we are going to have, and I'm actually just going to style this real quick because the styles are going to be very similar. So we can just copy and paste it. So it's going to be class name. For the username is already taken, we want text red-500. And we want the text to be extra small and font bold, negative margin top of 4, and we want it to be uppercase. And then we're just going to copy this down, and we're going to change it up, obviously. Text green 500, and we want username is available, exclamation point. And then we want the final, which is if the username is null. I mentioned that we could get null back, so it's best to not display a message for that. We probably would want to display an error message actually. But I mean, if you can get this far, I'm sure you'd be able to kind of display your own error message if something comes up. Yeah, so let's go ahead and save that. And I'm going to clear out this terminal. Let me look over this to make sure. Yeah, okay, let's just give this a shot and see if it works. And okay, so we had a little bit of an issue there. Okay, so let's see if it works. So let's just try. So I think Alice was one, wasn't it? So let's try Arthur. Okay, so let's try Arthur. Username is already taken, please try another. Okay, and you notice that it took a minute. Well, it didn't take a minute, it took 2 seconds because that's what we called it, but, and it should, oh, okay, no, so, yeah, that's something we need to fix. So we do need to set username is taken back to null. After, whenever we change the username, we want to just set it back to null because it's technically in a state where it is being, I guess you could call it searched, or it's kind of in this weird state where it's like it's unknown whether it's available or it's not. So the place where we want to do that is where we change the username. And that is here in the handle username is changed. So set username is taken to null. And that should fix that. So let's go ahead and refresh. Now let's try Arthur again, and again it'll wait 2 seconds. Okay, that's good. And it also might be a little bit longer, and you see it disappears as soon as I type. I'll try that again. Okay, and as soon as I type, again, as soon as it changes, it sets it back to null, so that message goes away. And again, because the amount of time it takes could also depend on your user's internet connection, so this is just like the bare minimum delay that it's going to be. And I'll speed it up a little bit so it's not as awful to sit through. What else? What other usernames do we have? We have, I think we had Bruce, right? Okay, username is taken. Please try another, but let's try one that we don't have. So we'll try Alice. Username is available. Awesome. So you notice that now that I have it, I can just and it's not going to send any request to the API until 500 milliseconds after I stop typing. So perfect. So it works. I mean, that's an ungodly long username. Honestly, too, you would have constraints here. You'd probably use a regex that, again, I know I've mentioned this before, but you would have a regex here that would constrain the username to certain parameters that the user cannot go beyond. So I guess the last thing that we want to do is, even though this next button doesn't go anywhere, we kind of do want to make sure that that is wired in with everything. So let's set the disabled property on that to change based on whether or not our username is taken. And basically it's going to be the same exact thing that we used up here, just down here in the button. So it is going to be a little bit verbose, but it's an important thing. It's an important component of UX design, because it's horrible if you were able to just be able to click next on after a username is already taken. That's just, I couldn't imagine how how bad the user experience would be. So if username is taken is equal to true, then we want true. And then else, if username is taken is equal to false, then we also want false. But in all other cases, we want true. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And there we go. So we have it disabled. If we type in username is taken, please try another, it's disabled. Was Charlie one? Username was already taken, but let's try CH. Okay, perfect. Christine. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, this is kind of the end here. I will show you too, probably what you would do is for check for username, you'd probably have another function that would, well, I mean, what you would do is you would have your regex appear probably, and you would check to make sure that it meets certain constraints. And then if the regex passes the test, then you would run all this. So yeah. So again, hope this helps, and I hope that it is something that you are able to use on other projects that you're working on. And yeah, if you have any things that you noticed I may have done better, please let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I do appreciate you guys come along for the ride. So I will see you guys soon. Thanks. See ya.